So what's coming up for me is on the sound frequency spectrum of audible sounds. Let's notice where we're tending and where our interests are and what is stressed or pronounced tonight. And feel free to, not in a synesthesia way, but to be able to, maybe, I know that the director of the museum loves for lots of different senses and artists, types of art to be involved. And so please, this is your invitation to be as free as possible. And yes, it is freeing of your mind. It is the imagination to go out there. And so as we are casting our light, it's not showing you what to see, but it is casting us. So be aware of the gels and the filters that we're using, and not to damn those, because what are we going to do? Tear down all of our gels, our filters? The light is way too bright. It's like we staring straight into that. So let's accept and allow what is there. And as we've known in previous episodes, what is discordant really helps to frame and give some grit. I was talking earlier today about, there is no growth in the comfort zone. The oyster needs the grain of sand to build the pearl around. And so let's feel into our bodies, not only the harmony, but the grit, and allow that healing to move through our bodies, and to recognize what is working and what is not, let go what is not in service to us, and welcome in the beautiful space what will propel us to achieve our hopes and our dreams, and to allow the unexpected in this year 2022. So you are welcome to the Perceiver of Sound League Research Studio series, and we are re-upped for 2022, and so this is going on. And when I first started performing, it is, if you're performing for 2 or 200, it is the same. And so thanks for being here, y'all. So where are we? What else? Where else would we be but elsewhere, where we make sounds about sound? I trust we're all sound, mind, and body. And y'all don't know, I'm Gavin Glass, and if you have any questions, just ask. Before we begin, I want to remind you that this is a creative vortex, sometimes tumultuous, and then other times just spinning in that torus of energy. And so feel free to write and draw, and especially on the musical parts, to make music, because I'll remind you, you also can be whatever sounds or even spoken words you want to be. So allow that heart to speak your truth through your 5th chakra. You aren't expected to necessarily pay a lot of attention. This is not a, you must listen to me. If spacing out or daydreaming is your thing, that's what's supposed to be. So allow, accept. You can even mediate or move. So be an ambassador to the next thing without reaching to that conclusion. Allow the current to take you there. Last session we introduced movement as a form of body music that anyone can do. If you remember me writhing around on the floor and all such of maneuvers. So, anybody can move, anybody can feel that rhythm. And so whether it's with your hands or your feet or your nose or your toes, if you want to stand up and be a cosmic antenna, where's my man bun? And just move back so you don't block anyone's view, and be conscious of your personal space. I don't like to throw elbows, so I gotta rein it in sometimes. So last session we talked about the music. A unique cultural flowering of improvised music among the airs of the jazz tradition. But what is improvisation? It's not showing up late like, what the fuck am I doing? It is your whole life story bringing you here in the present moment where we have an attitude of gratitude that I made it, I'm here. So, I mean, that's what I think. What do you think? So, no, I mean, it's a real question. So, like, what do you, somebody speak up about improvisation. What do you think about improvisation?
What is it?
Yeah, what the fuck is it? Yeah.
What is it?
I see improve in there.
Mm-hmm.
Spontaneity.
Putting disparate things together.
That's beautiful. I love the disparate. It's like a mending or a blending or a bridge.
Mm-hmm. Like, I'm trying to think of the Japanese word. Kintsu. Jack has heard it. Yeah, I can't remember right now. But it's the art of mending broken things with silver or gold.
Oh, I love that. Yes, I know what you're talking about. Oh,
And
that's so killer.
And they think
Yeah.
it makes it more
Yeah.
more beautiful.
Yeah. No,
And-
I've seen 2D images of that.
Yeah.
And extraordinary.
Uh-huh.
I was trying to get ready.
Makes you want to go break something.
What's coming up for me is the difference between damning and darning. Anytime I'll say damn, I'm like, damn, that's a fucking wall. That's holding
Yeah,
everything back.
right.
But to darn something,
That's
you're
right.
mending. And you darn it, that's a DIY. You're not taking it to somebody else, you darn it yourself.
That's right.
So don't damn it, darn it, and allow that spontaneous combustion.
Oh, I think that's interesting. It has this element of improvisation inherently embraces flaws.
Yep. Yep.
And
Absolutely.
sees them as
interesting.
strengths.
Somebody writing this
Yeah.
down? Oh, damn it, darn it.
It's on videotape. That's
This will be down in the public record.
I hope we push record.
Posterity.
Somebody's catching it.
Well, I'll throw it out there. Improvised music could maybe be music that's not composed.
I'm not composed.
Can you, yeah.
Damn sure.
Well, can you compose chaos? Is that a composable thing?
That's
Well,
what we're getting
That's the big
into.
thing. I mean, a lot of composers are working on that.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yes, definitely yes.
That's like the thing now. It's like,
Yeah,
what
yeah,
does
it's a
that
big
sound
thing.
like?
I mean, it's been for 30 years. I mean, it's not
Okay. Yeah.
quite
well,
new, but definitely yes.
So they're trying to, like, there's some who are trying to take themselves out of the process. Or are
Well,
they?
it's interesting, and that's exactly what we're going to dig into today.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
I feel you.
My next line is, so what is composed music? But we just
We
we
kind
just
of.
described that, and we keep alluding. So let's move on. Well, I gotta throw this bone out there now. I mean, it's sort of out there, but I don't want to cause a kerfuffle or nothing. But which one is better? Like
Composed! Better!
Yeah.
compose yourself, bro.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
It's just because you're not free. I mean,
Oh, this freedom is a mess! We want the trains to run on time!
It's always
Order is
there.
great.
It's always that chaos and that order constantly. I don't think you can extricate yourself from it. But again, allow, accept, and then dance with it.
I think order begs for chaos. Wants it.
We probably don't have manifestation without both, without that blend. We wouldn't be.
Well, yeah, that's true. Because,
Chaos does
because
pay for it, but it
yeah,
needs
the
it.
second law of thermodynamics, that chaos is disproportionately created when work or order is imposed.
Mm-hmm.
For an equal amount of.
So that's why you get
one.
a little bit of warm from a fire with a lot of smoke.
Right.
Oh, you
Uh-huh.
hit it, Jack. Oh, good.
Yeah.
Feeling that?
Yeah, a lot of waste. Chaos waste. Entropy, I think it's what
Yeah.
they call it.
Entropy, oh
Yep.
yeah.
Yep.
That's a wonderful book, by the way. It's called Entropy by Jeremy Rifkin. Top book. If you're interested in entropy, what that is and how it manifests, you must read it. Find a copy.
It's created by order.
So good.
Imposing order always creates entropy.
Yeah.
More entropy than it actually creates.
Yeah. Well, the more
Good, according
the
to-
more order you try to create, the more entropy is the result.
Mm.
Equal amount of entropy is created,
Mm-hmm.
which is what's bad about certain types of political.
You make laws, you
Yes.
create criminals. You know?
Are they gonna
Or
make us
whatever.
outlaws again?
Yeah.
Yep. Breaking the law every day.
All right. we didn't wax philosophical. We just allowed the philosophers to speak, and so that was amazing. So thank you all so much for your beautiful answers. Okay, so we don't need an invocation, but we want an invocation at this point, and so we love invoking and things of that nature. So before we get into the nitty-gritty, so I want to invite some transcorporeal friends, the usual folks. So come trickle in, all of our spirits and sprites and, well, everything that we cannot maybe perceive with our above board five senses. And so feel in and call in your ancestors and your guides and your inspiration and your, oh, what am I being dogmatic all of a sudden? This event is canonically non-dogmatic, gosh darn it. We accept all possibilities for consideration, all. And discussion. There ain't no topic, it's let it fly. And suspend conclusions. Oh, that feels good. We welcome everyone and do not privilege current dominant paradigms. We welcome visitors from the future and invite all of our, and this is my favorite part, incorporeal, semi-corporeal, multi-corporeal, and omnicorporeal. We'd be here all day if I asked you your definition of all of those, so hold it. And these are cosmic brothers and sisters and everyone in between to join us and protect us and heal us and help us listen to each other and to the nature around us, honoring the silence. May we be aware enough to hear our own inner voices. And let's do a group Om. Everyone knows how to Om. You're at Om. Let's breathe in and breathe out. Two more before we Om. Breathe in, maybe a little diaphragmic breathing. Breathe out. And breathe in and Om your hearts out. In the pursuit of the unknown, Folly is inevitable. Silence is the bedrock of all sound and being. Honor the silence. Images, thoughts, emotions that arise, they do so for a purpose. Share or don't share as is comfortable. Presence is participation, presence. So we're present, we're here. We have our gifts, let them shine and let's share. And I want to introduce the founder of the Perceiver of Sound League.
Clark.
Clerk Gary, hi everybody!
Thank you. Sorry about losing my cool there earlier. I'm just going to quote a few definitions for you to get the conversation started. This is from a master's thesis by Michael Dale, and he's a composer from California who works on what he calls comprovisation. And I'm sharing this without permission, I might add. Okay, composition, he says. One person predetermines as much as possible what a piece of music is going to be, notwithstanding the variability of performer style and execution. Second, comprovisation, which is what we're talking about today. One or more people predetermine only some of what the piece of music is going to be. The rest is determined at the moment of performance or execution. That's what we just did with the Om. And then pure or complete improvisation is one or more people predetermine nothing of what the piece will be. It's determined at the moment of performance or execution. And then he says, notwithstanding the predetermination of one's individual conditioning and experience with regard to both culture and one's own psychology. And Laurent and I were talking before, just a moment before, and we were talking about all these things that come into the improvisation: muscle memory, what you've practiced, your scales, the tradition that you come from. Most drummers will sit down and start hitting out a pulse, for example, in 2/4 or 4/4, he was saying. And then there's all these expectations. Anyways, I wanted to draw attention to those last two definitions and say any music that's made within a predetermined scale is compromised. Like if you do modal music and you're playing in the key of G or you're playing in the key of C, then that's compromised because that scale is already determined. Somebody has written that scale, you know. And that's also your instrument determines to a large extent what kind of sounds you can make. Eventually it gets impossible to completely escape the compositional tendency. But then on the other hand, composition without improvisation is rare, to say at best. Most of the compositions historically somebody comes up with them through the process of improvisation, and then now we have today a lot more composers that take a systematic approach. They'll create a system and then the work will emerge from that. So there is some of that, but I contend that's like a small percentage. And the point of listening to a composition that's played by musicians instead of by machines is that you get that element of indeterminacy. And, you know, Sarah Jane was saying how improvisation has this idea of flaw. You accept the flaws. And that somehow what we like more about listening to human musicians is this element of indeterminacy, that somehow the player that we admire rides that indeterminacy and makes it into their part of their voice and the voice of the composition. Except for some kind of theoretical perfect composer, there's improvisation happening on one level and composition happening on another level simultaneously, whether it's just the traces of your folk music's coming in. Now in the world of the music that we talked about last week, that particular strand of improvised music, it's understood that the composition of a given piece consists of the people who are playing it. So the compositional step is when you invite these three musicians to come play with you, and and then whatever happens is, defined by that, but it's also free within that. And so they put enormous energy actually into the composition, and they form these shifting social networks of like who plays with each other. And now the other thing I noticed in this guy Dale's thesis is that he talked about and he focused on is that some people compose to make improvisation better, and that's the real. He says. Steve Adams, composer Steve Adams, says his graphic scores function to make the musicians more unpredictable than they would be without them. Because they force your mind to do something other than its usual pattern while you're improvising. It forces you out of your rut. And that's what he says is that's what he tries to achieve in his composition is actually more improvisation than you could get by just improvising. So tonight's main event is a comprovisation that we can all join in on by one of Greensboro's musical titans. And this is saying a lot that this is the home of Billy Crash Craddock, Eugene Chadbourne, Fred Wesley, and Rhiannon Giddens. You know who I mean. Mr. Swiss Movement himself, Laurent Estoppey. But first, we are going to make a comprovisation. And one of you has to come up with a comprovisation. And whoever does it, I'm going to give you a 7-inch by the Ghost Trees as your prize, but I left it in the car. So any volunteers? A short comprovisation. Remember our own was just say, everybody go at the same time. It could be like a count off and then like different phases. Anybody have an idea? And you get to take home the Ghost Trees.
God, you make it so appealing.
I know we got some musicians in the house. It's got to be simple because it's got to be short. Any volunteers? Who didn't step backwards? Oh, here we go. Here we have a comprovisation. Go ahead, lay it on us, and we'll do it.
All right, this is actually really simple and really endless,
Oh,
but nice and fast. And actually, maybe we could start with 3 people and then do the whole group,
Okay.
or like 3 and then up 3 others and then the whole group,
Okay.
because it gets messy really fast.
Okay.
It's just sing a pitch. Everybody sings a pitch when we cue it, and we hold it as long as you can. Don't change. Don't adjust to people around you, and just listen to the chord.
Mm-hmm.
And then just stay with it and see if you can notice who you're doubling with, who you've got octaves with it. Any if you notice that it's completely out and you can't name it, notice that. Just notice whatever you can about it. So, how about who wants to go? Who's 3 people want to go first? We'll do a 4-note chord. I'll sing. So then we'll hear it, practice hearing it, and then we'll do a bigger group. So
Okay.
1, 2.
And what is there, a count off or something? And
I'll
you
do
maybe?
3. I'll do 3, and then on 4 we do it.
Okay.
So 1, 2, 3.
Okay.
And me. Okay. So find where in your voice you're gonna go. 1, 2, 3. So you started to adjust to me, but we had this cool dissonance after once you settled. And then there were a couple of cool intervals going on, but I don't think I have a name for that chord.
Okay, can we go for a bigger chord now?
Yeah. Does everyone? Shall we do everybody?
Cool.
All right. 1. Just find it. Just know where you are in your voice. 1, 2, 3. So many layers. That's it.
Cool. And now you're gonna. Gavin will introduce Laurent for us, and then we'll do his piece with him.
I'm curious. That compromisation.
That was good.
Well, it's opposite. It's opposite. All right, our special guest, and I think he's omnicorporeal. I'm definitely not just a corporeal being here. here. So, a master of both composed musical traditions and the improvised style. So, he plays with orchestras in Europe and with illustrious people, but he also is completely unpretentious and possibly a Zen master because he can quite sincerely enjoy spending time and learning things from fools who's hanging out with me, and the profundity of the ignorant as well. So he has created a special comprovisation for us, which he will now lead us through once I start babbling on. And so, and one of the greatest names ever to roll off of my tongue. Please welcome Laurent Estoppey.
That's the best introduction ever. Oh! Thank you. That's even better. Well, so I don't need to do anything. I mean, I just sit and that was it. That was great. Well, thank you. So I'm just so before entering to the thing, and I would just like to develop a little bit this notion of comprovisation and maybe just talk a little bit or just discuss a little bit, because I don't know, it seems like it's a new thing, right? I mean, a lot of people are thinking about that and all, but actually somehow for me everything is a comprovisation, and because I don't see where I can start to see no improvisation or no composition, and if I can't see that, then I have a problem. So I don't know. So to me, everything is. And so yeah, we were discussing earlier, and I don't know. I think we discussed even the composer, right? The first gesture or even the first thought of a composer. I mean, this is exactly a state of improvisation to begin with, because there is just even choosing a system. Even choosing whatever the instruments or whatever, it's not. It comes from somehow intuition, just the idea of the moment, the spontaneity, spontaneity. Yeah. So anyway, I think for me, even that, it's already there is a part of improvisation in that. It's not only applying a system after another system and all this. And the same, so I was also trying to understand, let's say a musician in an orchestra playing Beethoven 6th, to say one. I think a good musician is in a state of improvisation even when he's playing Beethoven. And okay, the frame is so tiny, right? I mean, the clarinet player, he has to play the right notes, the right time, and all this. But I'm sure if you take the same person day after day, or different people playing the exact same passage, it's gonna sound very different somehow in a tiny frame again. But still, it is. So this state, to me, of improvisation is here. It is absolutely present. And the opposite, exactly what Gary was saying, when you're improvising, first, there was a choice. There was a choice of who's here, where. It's already huge. I mean, it says a lot. And yeah, maybe there are some sort of more appearances, maybe of freedoms. But even that, I'm not sure, actually. I mean, when you're playing a chamber music, everything is written down, everything. Still, you have to make one decision for every note you're playing, and probably way more than one decision. So by the end, I'm not sure you're more free to improvise freely or to interpret a piece. I'm not that sure, actually. Mm-hmm. So and that that's why I'm kind of interested, of course. I mean, how people, think about that, what they bring on the table with that. I don't know, and I wanted to just to react to one thing, which was the notion of the silence. I think you said, and I mean, for me, one of the best composition remains 4:33 by Jan Cage. If everyone is familiar about the piece, and this is just brilliant because basically, so he puts the biggest frame ever, just a time frame, 4:33 seconds. Even if on the original score he also says that it could be any duration, right? So, but still, I mean, there is 4:33. There are tons of discussions about why these numbers. Was it random? Was it? There is one of the theories. Which I kind of like because it seems very undeterminate, right? I mean, this number, but actually he was very familiar to a certain type of typewriters back in time, and you could have on the same key if you were using the cap or not. So the 4 was in an apostrophe, and the 3 was a double apostrophe. Right, so you see me coming with the 4 minute and 33 second, which could be just some sort of a ready-made from a typewriter, maybe. And it's kind of interesting because it's the most concrete theory about this number, and which is kind of interesting. But anyway, this composition, okay, everyone can do it, no problem, right? And then that's the thing. But he did it, right? That was the thing. But then the result is, by definition, is going to be each time totally different, right? And even if we take his experience of the anechoical room, when he wanted to experience the silence, right? So he went into this room, which is supposed to be a perfect silence. And actually, he was so scared because he heard all his own sounds. And he was like, okay, so silence is just impossible to reach, basically. So it's really interesting because this piece opens so many things, but then it's a pure improvisation somehow. I mean, because we don't. I mean, it's totally undeterminate, and so we have no idea what's going to happen during this time. So sorry, it was just to react to a couple of points, and so yeah, I don't know if I'm here with a comprovisation or with what. First, I have to say that I have to unfortunately switch my sources and my material. So first, I wanted to try things with you, starting from a book by Susan Ho called That This. I worked on this book a few times. A few years ago, I did some sort of a piece involving the audience or people or everyone around. It was on another text by Susan Ho, so I wanted to continue that. But very unfortunately, yesterday a very good friend of mine passed at age 85. So his name is István Zelenka. So he was originally from Hungary. But also national from Austria, but he lived in Switzerland almost his whole life, and so he was a great composer. And interestingly enough, the type of work I wanted to do from the Susan Ho's text is the one I've done for years and years with himself and his pieces and all that. So I thought it was obviously a great tribute to switch my source text and to propose you some reflections and some sound pieces from his pieces. So I don't want to talk too much about him. So he was just very Cajun, so really following John Cage. Most of his compositions don't have any notes written down, but only text. Sometimes they are just lists of words. Sometimes they are just words spread out on a piece of paper. Most of the time, there is no indication at all about what to do. So we were talking a little bit about what is the expectation of a composer, right? And some composer have a clear expectation. So basically, they want the musician to be just somehow an interface from what is on the paper to what's on the air and what arrives in the ears, basically. But they have a clear idea, and that's what they want. And on the opposite side of the spectrum, we have people like Zelenka, who precisely didn't want any result, or actually is not expecting any result, the process is obviously way more important than the result in itself. But the result could be great, obviously, and it's not to be avoided. But the more unpredicted the result is, and the best it is for him. So, starting with that, I would like to invite you to. So I'm going to give you. Okay, so of course, I don't have any expectation myself either. So I'm just also trying to be some sort of an interface, and that's the way I also do myself. I did a lot of these pieces just by myself on very different settings. Sometimes playing on the street or in the supermarket or whatever, or inventing my own rules and reinventing my own rules on every piece. So there is nothing right, it's just a proposition for now. As Gavin said, feel free to get out of the box, right? I propose something which is a framework to begin with, right? I mean, the same idea as a first prompt. But then the music or whatever, the sounds can go wherever. Feel free to use the instruments you have if you feel it's a great moment to add sounds and things. Do it at any time. The only thing I would like is to create. So when Gary asked me for a little text or something, I was thinking about the elsewhere spoken choir, right? And so let's just think that we are a choir, and basically don't listen to yourself, just listen to other people, right? And so just everything you're doing, the way you're doing things, it's just depending on the others, and we try to have this quality of a choir. Somehow we'll see how it goes. So I'm actually going to take my saxophone because maybe I'm going to react to some myself. Sorry. So to enter a little bit in his world, I want to start this piece through the exact middle of the line, one list. What I suggest is I invite you to read very naturally this text, but first without using any consonant. So basically I would like everyone to read together, but just take your pace. Maybe it's going to be together, maybe it won't be, and don't use any consonant, and we go through this list and this is the piece. So whenever you want. Beautiful ending. Can we read again the text, maybe almost in a normal speed, sorry, of reading, and now no vowels, so only the consonants. Can we try that? Thank you. I'd be curious, so we all read together this list very clearly, but as fast as possible. If we can do that, and we try to breathe together and to read this list.
He still felt his mother's proximity. The men there had beards, they beautiful, cherished little things. And what now, Calloway? You were lying to me. He opened his mouth. Speaking of sophomores, a few moments earlier, yes, opportunity. He opened the door and admitted what he saw was a stone. Things had rotted. 24-year-olds Danes and Irish and Germans and Slovaks and Italians and a whole sudden life. I feel inspired today. 15 years later, one Saturday morning, a pathetic individual needs to be covered. A clear-cut girl, artisans doing their lonely work, a toothbrush, pajamas, bathrobe, slippers, and a book. And what about the toes themes? This was the wildest venture of his life. She was silent. I can never trust you. Isn't the average thing human beings do every day? I waited for you.
Isn't that what I waited for?
I waited for you.
Australian accent? Australian accent?
Pick your favorite.
We can do that. And so to finish with this piece, I would open to any possibility. The only rule, you can also be against this rule if you want, of course, would be to read the list again from top to bottom. But now you can use whatever you want, and we try to build something all together. Use the instruments if you want to add things which are here or not here. Feel totally free, but that's just the proposition, and then we play together with that.
He still fed. Yeah. Mother's proximity. The men there.
You're lying too? Yes.
A few months earlier. They opened the door and went in. This down. Things have rotted.
Say what?
A 24 years old date.
I'll never trust you.
Irish and German and Slovaks and Italians and Polish. A sudden laugh.
15 years later.
I'm feeling splendid.
Saturday.
One Saturday morning, the pathetic individual needs to be comforted.
What now?
Clean cut girl.
Clean cut, girl.
Artisans doing their lonely work. Slippers and a book. It was about the toes name. This was the world, this picture was the leader.
What?
15 years later.
Average human beings.
15 years later.
Things have rotted.
Isn't that what hell? Average human being.
15 years later, one. That again.
Toothbrush.
Silence.
Pajamas.
Clean.
Slippers, sandal.
Oh. Trust you.
What about the toes names?
Birthday. Head. 4.
I feel inspired today.
I waited for you.
I feel inspired today. I feel inspired today.
Never trust.
You know what average human beings do? I feel inspired today. Good toothbrush laid off. Be comforted. He still failed.
Isn't that what average human beings do every day? I feel inspired today. Oh, really?
15 years later, on Saturday morning.
Artist, he's doing a lovely
You are lying to. Trust.
He still failed. 15 years later.
She was silent.
Ooh.
However, also,
Indeed.
the and but
Possibly.
Possibly.
Among.
Even though.
Nevertheless.
However.
Even then.
Yet whatsoever in spite of, nevertheless.
Throughout.
Meanwhile,
Almost.
Then.
indeed.
even though,
However.
Throughout.
Even if.
By chance.
Throughout.
indeed.
Possibly.
Spite of.
Throughout.
Nevertheless,
Nevertheless.
however,
Also,
Meanwhile.
even then,
about.
possibly,
Almost.
Meanwhile.
Indeed.
whatsoever,
However.
By chance,
so, ever.
24 years old.
almost.
Even after.
Possibly,
Even then,
possibly,
even though,
However.
throughout,
Wildest.
in spite of,
Even though.
indeed among by chance.
Possibly.
even then.
Nevertheless.
Meanwhile.
Yeah. Isn't
Oh.
that what?
Also.
Possibly,
In spite of.
Possibly.
among,
Never.
By chance.
also,
Meanwhile.
whatever,
Whatsoever.
even though, in spite of,
Speak.
Among.
indeed.
However.
Clean cut.
Throughout.
Possibly.
Nevertheless.
Also,
Indeed.
Possibly.
also,
Meanwhile.
also in spite of,
Possibly.
By.
Among whatsoever.
also,
Toes name.
Bird.
Shout.
yet, possibly,
Later.
By.
possibly, nevertheless,
Meanwhile.
even then,
About.
Usual.
15 years.
by chance,
Went in.
Bird.
Among.
Possibly.
When she.
however,
I feel about.
Yes.
possibly,
Germans.
Yes.
Is it a cold or a pull off?
Also.
indeed,
A sudden laugh.
Shout.
A sheep.
On.
Average human beings do,
Even though.
Possibly.
in spite of.
Bird.
Gag.
she was silent,
Even though.
meanwhile,
Even then.
in spite of,
By
Shout.
chance.
Possibly.
Bird.
Possibly,
Lawn.
nevertheless,
meanwhile,
Usual.
possibly,
However.
even then,
Yet.
Possibly.
In spite of.
yes.
Usual. Bird.
Possibly.
Third day.
Possibly.
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 By chance.
Possibly. Possibly. Possibly.
Possibly.
Almost.
Possibly.
Possibly.
In spite of.
Almost.
Indeed.
Almost.
Possibly.
Possibly.
What's the letter?
About.
In spite of.
Even if.
Possibly.
Almost.
Almost. Meanwhile.
Indeed.
Go on and buy yourself an Oli. Oli's the best beer in the land. Go ahead and buy yourself an Oli. What's a sweet one?
you so much. Istvan would have loved this. Thank you so much.
Best mic drop ever.
Thanks, Thanks, everyone.
Innovative mic.
That's
right.
Infinite.
Wow.
Now there's going to be a trend.
Yeah,
Compromise.
you should definitely
mic
TikTok
drop.
that.
Dang. Write that down.
And we lost Gary.
Probably just took it early.
I want
Right, Gary.
I want to ask, did you compose the experience? Did you improvise it? Did you comprovise it? Or is that
Yeah.
asking
That's a
the
good
magician
Yeah.
No,
to
actually,
reveal the trick?
Exactly what was that?
Don't have to answer.
I can't answer. No. So it took a total different way that I expected, and
Don't they all?
no. So I thought that we would do more small things, and actually it was so great that suddenly the thing went. So I was in my toolbox. We discussed a lot about improvising. Basically, it's just about using a toolbox
Yeah.
and opening it and finding new tools and stuff, and so suddenly I was totally also in an improvisation mode, but with all the ideas I had, the pieces, and so first the idea was to project the prompts, and but we couldn't figure out the projector, didn't have the right connections and everything. So basically everything then was changed. And
gave him
you
a
guys
golden
did the
shadow.
rest, and
Gave him a golden shadow.
exactly.
Maybe it gave you the chance to write what you wanted to project, and then you did the DIY, the personal touch. Or it wasn't all of us where we had to pay attention. You were offering
I don't know,
that,
yeah.
and it went around sort of like a clock. Where
Right.
Yeah, you
Oh,
really shared
that's-
the power with us. We had the power to be just.
I
you
love
weren't-
that.
You weren't leading it. You gave the power of.
Thank you.
performer
Well,
I love
to
I
everyone.
tried that just to, So Istvan always said that he was, he considered himself as an inspired inspirer,
Yeah.
and which I like a lot, basically, and not being a composer, but just I give you this idea, this thing, so I tried to convey a little bit of that, and I mean, it sounded great. I mean, so many things, and yeah, everyone was really paying attention and listening, and that was beautiful. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Laurent.
433 hertz.
4 minutes and 33 seconds. Oh yeah.
Tuning, yeah, like the frequency.
True as well. True as well.
I was scared for a second. It was the number of levels in the two different kinds of Freemasonry.
Can be. You never know.
Yeah, you tune everything, and then silence still can create vibrations in the frequency, right?
Right. Yeah.
Because we can't hear it doesn't make it just like a sound.
Right. Yeah, there is this. I think he's Canadian, Michael Gendreau. That's his name, and so he plays concerts only with ultra basses that you actually don't hear.
Like they're ultrasonic or something.
That's just ultrasonic.
Wow.
And it's kind of incredible actually, because it's really cool, but you can't describe because it's not the ear. I mean, you don't hear anything basically. It's just change of frequencies and things, and it's really, really cool actually. So it's possible some people do that.
That's cool. How would you love that? It'll make you diminish a lot in play. And then just turn it, you know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
What do you think?
Right.
I think all the blood cells.
You're
are
vibrating with it.
That's right.
Yeah.
The Schumann frequency.
That would be cool as.
I like how we were guided on a journey together through this, and with different, not hard stops. So it was continuous.
Yeah,
As being a continuous
washes.
experience, we continued to build together as a group. So I noticed that if we were trying to understand these abstract concepts individually, compartmentalized, we would not have learned nearly as much. Because we all were playing and learning around one another through these exercises, and that was profound. Because all of our brains are working in different ways, in interpretation, ultimately.
Right, right.
And that to me was, I mean, I wrote down like, what is music? And at the end it's not melody, structure, cadence, rhythm, it's not linear, it's not patterns, it's not necessarily a progression or repetition or frequency, because we proved all that wrong, yet it's all right still.
That's no, exactly. I mean, they remain because there was all of this.
Yeah.
Yes.
Basically at different levels, and then I mean, if I go back to what you were saying about chaos, I mean, it's not chaos, absolutely not. I mean, everything is totally has their own logic basically to be built, and but still, it's extremely complex. What happened? I mean, it's just hugely complex.
Something that came up for me was that in terms of the difference between the concept and the background, the orientation, and the experience, the actual piece. We all probably have very different, or would have had very different ideas in our mind if we were asked to imagine what these concepts would sound like if they were put into a piece. But then we did an experience where we all had the same experience. So we were probably all way wherever, because the concepts are so abstract and words are abstract anyway, and we all have our own interpretations. But then the sound is what brought us together. The intention behind the sound is, okay, I think I've got you, but then the sound is immediately unifies everybody. And especially when the task is to listen and to be a part of the sound, then you can't escape it. So then the concepts stare you right in the face, rather than just being these ephemeral things that you're weaving out of your imagination.
Right.
It's real and it's right here. And but we still have room to explore those concepts in other ways on our own. They can still be ours, but they were the groups for this particular performance.
We pulled them.
Yeah, thanks. Very nice.
We pulled them and then we swam in it.
That's right, yeah. Nice. Pool our resources and swim in it. That's a great one. I'm going to remember that.
It's a nice little kit you have. Thank you. Does it all.
This is the first snare I ever got.
Really?
With my first snare drum right here.
Yeah, hang on to
Yeah,
that.
that's something that you
That was
think
cool.
about.
That
So we're all simultaneously at different
He did.
paces trying to learn to read again together.
Exactly.
That's how these important lessons.
It came in flavor with
Thank
Thank you. No, I appreciate it.
All right.
What I like is that
We were in sync, in and out of sync.
the idea is so simple
Yeah.
that
I'm trying to catch you, but then.
everyone obviously can do
I'm
it.
trying to
Yeah, it's kind of fun.
wrap
Not
around
to hold
So
it in place,
you just
but
do
like
it,
we
it's
were
natural.
like come together and
But at the same time,
Yeah.
immediately put that into a huge abstraction, even though you're just reading a text,
Right.
right? And if you